Hello, this is Gina Piscatelli with the second lecture for skeletal muscle physiology. In this lecture, I'm going to discuss the intricate and unique anatomy of skeletal muscles. This picture shows a whole skeletal muscle that's ensheathed in connective tissue that's shown as gray or purple. It also shows how a muscle can be partitioned into segments. In the picture, we're seeing several segments called muscle fascicles. Before we look at the specific structure of skeletal muscles, it's going to be helpful for you to be acquainted with some terminology or definitions of terms that are used to name specific structures inside a muscle. So these three terms are myo, mys, and sarco. Myo refers to muscle, as does mys. Sarco refers to fleshiness or flesh, but a muscle is kind of flesh, so they use that as well. Myo, an example for myo is a muscle cell is called a myocyte. An example of mys is that the connective tissue surrounding a muscle cell is called endomysium. And an example of sarco is the sarcoplasmic reticulum inside a muscle cell called the it's what we call the endoplasmic reticulum. So to begin our study of muscle structure, let's look at the connective tissue that surrounds a whole muscle. There's two coverings, the superficial fascia and then the deeper epimysium. As you can see in the picture on the right, there's also some deeper connective tissue shown as white, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So the superficial fascia is composed of loose connective tissue and located beneath the skin. It's going to surround groups of muscles, not just one muscle. And in addition, it usually covers blood vessels and nerves that supply those muscles. The epimysium covers one individual muscle. It's made up of dense irregular connective tissue, and it's sometimes referred to as deep fascia. The epimysium often forms the connection to bone. So in the picture on the lower right, you can see that the epimysium is forming a tendon which blends into the periosteum of the bone. The picture on the left just shows us the superficial fascia covering some thigh muscles. Skeletal muscle structure is hierarchical. That is, that we can break down a skeletal muscle into individual subunits. So a whole muscle is composed of multiple muscle fascicles. I have the muscle fascicles, a couple of them, circled in purple. Then secondly, each muscle fascicle is composed of individual myocytes, multiple individual myocytes. And I have one myocyte circled in green in this picture. Now notice the muscle fascicle also has some connective tissue around it that's shown as white. I'll circle here the white connective tissue. We'll name that in a second. And even within a muscle fascicle, in between myocytes, there's some connective tissue. So let's look at what those are called. The name of the connective tissue that surrounds each fascicle is perimysium. So that's perimysium there. The name of the connective tissue that surrounds each individual myocyte is endomysium. It's the salmon-colored or pink. So far, all the connective tissues that we've talked about from superficial to deep include the superficial fascia, then deeper the epimysium, and then even deeper around a fascicle is the perimysium, and deeper than that is the endomysium around individual muscle cells. And here's a picture that's kind of blown up to show you the connective tissue that's salmon colored in between individual muscle cells. Obviously, it's thinner the deeper you get. So, if we look even more magnified, we're going to see more subdivision. For example, an individual myocyte, which I circled in green previously, I'll circle it here in blue. It's right there. And then we've got it blown up on the lower right over here, is composed of many myofibrils. So this particular muscle cell has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 myofibrils. Okay, so myofibrils. Each myofibril even has repeating units called myofilaments, and those are contractile proteins, which we'll talk about later when we do function. So, from the smallest structure to the largest in the hierarchical organization of a whole muscle is as follows. Groups of myofilaments form a myofibril. Many myofibrils form a myocyte. A group of myocytes forms a muscle fascicle, and a group of muscle fascicles forms a whole muscle. Thank you. In the next lecture, we're going to examine the structure of this interesting looking muscle cell here. We're going to look a little bit more detailed at it.